Hello, and welcome to the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. This podcast will show you how to achieve FI through entrepreneurial pursuits by developing a well-calibrated and thought-out plan for risk management so that you can maximize the rewards.
Hosted by certified financial planner, enrolled agent, and serial entrepreneur Ben Martinek, this is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker.
The information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of the content is presented as investment advice. Consult your financial professional before acting on any of the information presented in this show. Good morning, everyone. This is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. Thanks for joining us again today for yet another episode. So today's episode is going to follow a little bit on the prior episode. If you recall, our last episode was talking about your avatar and defining that as really a critical piece to determining how best to market. We ultimately can't serve everyone in business. You may have that noble aspiration initially, but truthfully, it's pretty foolhardy. Take it from me. I've learned that it's not the best way to go. You can't serve everyone. There's just 7-8 billion people in the world. It's not possible for you to have a business that takes care of every single person. Instead, you need to figure out the very specific person that you are going to be serving in your business. What is this product or service going to do? And who is the person that you're wanting? Because that's just simply where the business is going to shine once we get that determined. And so that's your avatar. But we now need to figure out basically, how do you do some sales? Like, how do you take someone who's interested in your product and bring them in to saying, yes, I'd like to move forward. Here's some money, which is where business gets exciting, by the way. That's kind of the fun part. But the avatar really is marketing and has some sales component too. But what we're going to talk about today is sales. And who I have with me is my lovely bride, Deb. Deb, why don't you introduce yourself? She's going to be here to help us walk through buyer psychology as part of our presentation today.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today and talking about this topic of buyer psychology. And a lot of what this can be boiled down to is the question, what does it take to close a sale? Now, both Ben and I have gone through a sales course. I'm going to put a little plug in here for a book and a course that we both went through with our good friend Nancy Blakey. It's called Conversations That Sell. And so in this book and in her approach, she focuses on what's most important or valuable or in it for them, for your avatar, for your prospect, that can guide the conversation. So those needs vary, obviously, and you have to adjust your presentation to help the prospect to see what it is that you provide that meets a need that they have in their life. And so what is it about what we do that solves their problem? And so Nancy provides some incredible guidance, technique, just a mindset reshift, if you will, for how to frame your conversations that you have with people that fit into your little niche of what your avatar is, but then how you can close that gap from them being interested in your services, of being that avatar that you're going after, to actually becoming a client, not just a prospect, but becoming a client. And so Ben and I, both having gone through this training, it's fun to discuss. And we bring this up oftentimes actually with friend groups of ours, because Nancy, in her market, in her book, and in her sales course, she talks a lot about these 4 different tribal types of people that you will come across. And you can have the whole breadth of them in your various avatar and that particular person that you're looking to provide your services for. So Ben, remind me, what are the 4 tribal types that we can discuss when considering our avatar?
We have your commander, your achiever, your expressor, and your reflector. These are the different personalities, broadly speaking, construed, that you might come across. And I think what's important about these different tribal types is recognizing that, well, I don't think this is news to anybody, but we're different. Each of us is different. We're different in what we're seeking. We're different in what we value. We are different in what we want in a relationship. And we're different in how we want to be sold to. So there's need for you to adjust, practice your technique on a client-by-client basis, person-by-person basis, based off of, what's their general personality and what is it that would really resonate or speak well to them. Because at the end of the day, people want to be sold to well. And if you don't sell to them well, they probably won't move forward and do business with you. And so part of selling to them well is identifying the type of person they are and really speaking their language to them, almost like a love language, if you're familiar with that in the Love Languages book by Gary Chapman. So it's a similar idea. And so we've got 4 personality types. the commander, the achiever, the reflector, and the expressor. So I fall, maybe of interest, into the achiever personality. Deb, what's your personality type?
Well, it's not surprising in any way that Ben is achiever. And I really love that Nancy narrows down her description for this particular tribal type with the title of achiever, because for as long as I've known Ben, which has been since 2005, and we've been married for 13 plus years now. A long time.
A great time.
For as long as I've known Ben, he has been an achiever. Like that sums him up. Like if he's got 75 to-do things on his to-do list per day, if he only gets 74 of them done, like, oh man, didn't get enough done today. You know, like he's very much motivated by the to-do list that he sees in front of him and takes great satisfaction actually in being able to accomplish all of the things on that list. And so details might not be the highest priority for a person who is an achiever, but getting things done to a point of satisfaction is the end goal for someone who's an achiever.
And that's right. Big time multitasker, running a lot of different things. And probably one of the better descriptions of achiever is, what is it? Shoot, aim, or shoot, ready, aim, or something like that. You just shoot first and we'll get ready and maybe we'll think about aiming the gun. But what the heck? The gun went off. So we got something done today. So let's go. So no, pretty well. I do put a little more thought into things than that, but I'm much more of a person who just wants, let's get it done. So like, how does that translate? How does that maybe selling to an achiever translate in part of your tactics? You know, make the sale. What would you do, Deb? Deb, actually, if you guys don't know, leads up the sales here for Bonafide. So she's got quite a bit of experience in making these adjustments on the front side. What would you do if you came across an achiever to adjust for them?
Well, I'll first state that this is definitely not my tribal type. Like I can get things done, but achiever is not in my bones. I'm an expressor. And so my tone with people is to talk and to keep talking and to investigate. And in doing so, whenever I detect that someone I might be, who is a prospect who I'm having a conversation with is an achiever, I try to keep things a little tighter. I try to stick to bullet points and, kind of hit the mountaintops, the peaks of the conversation of what it is that we can do for them. They're not interested in the nitty-gritty details necessarily. Like they want the Cliff Notes version and of what we can do for them. And usually like have an agenda, like, okay, all right, let's get to it. Let's get to the end. When are we done? Because I've got the next thing to do. And so I try to keep myself. Ben's just laughing.
Can we cut some time off of this? Like, yeah, okay, this is supposed to be 30 minutes. Oh man, you did it in 20, like bonus points for you. That's awesome. Way to go.
Which in no small way would be a miracle for me actually to complete that because I am a talker. Like I get that gift of gab from my dad. People always said that he never met a stranger. And I definitely have that slant whenever it comes to meeting with people. So I'm feeling really accomplished and achieved, if I can get to that point of finishing on time or ahead of time with someone that I've determined has an achiever tribal type to their personality. So
just finishing on time is an accomplishment for Deb. Okay, well, so the achievers out there, you love connecting with Deb, but she might take longer than what you want her to take. So
let's cut to the point.
No, achievers, definitely bullet points. Let's keep this on target. And if you could cut some time off of this, that would be amazing. So just tell me, get right to it. And the good or bad of it is an achiever will make a decision very quickly and move on. So if you nail them, you'll get the yes pretty right away. You might even get it by the end of the meeting or the call. It certainly wouldn't be very long after. And only if you don't get anything from them, then you know that they've just simply moved on and it's time for you probably.
They've already checked out.
Yeah. So just, nope, we didn't get the win on that one. So what about expressors? You've made mention of that one a little bit. This is definitely the people person. I mean, this is the one who wants to connect with people. They're looking to be friends. We just like each other. Like whether we do business or not is besides the point. Can't we all just get along? I mean, expressors actually will never get around to doing business. Like they just want to connect, which I don't fully understand. But that's why we have my lovely bride, Deb, here as the expressor or as the intake specialist on our team, because she's really good at connecting people. And so what would you, Deb, if someone were to be selling to you, what would you want them to do that would really wow you?
This can be really difficult as an expressor and when I'm meeting with expressors. And I've had this recently. I was visiting with a prospect the other day on a call, and within 5 minutes, both of us very clearly were expressors. I mean, the whole conversation went a mile a minute and we talked about a lot of really great things. But within 5 minutes of the conversation, both of us were like, can we just be friends? Like, even if nothing ever comes from this conversation of doing business together, can we be friends? And we both had that sentiment, which is just something that you get with expressors. And Ben's here shaking his head like, I don't understand how this happens. But so it can be a little bit more difficult because you can get caught up in the details of having the conversation. And I'm very just naturally inquisitive. I'm curious to know what makes a person who they are and what makes them tick and what their likes and dislikes are. And that can be very valuable information when considering in this line of work and asking about their finances and their financial situation, their goals and their dreams. But no matter what your product or service is that you're offering, like, you want to get to know on the personal side a bit the nature of the clientele that you're working with. But this can also have a bit of a detractment because you can get so caught up in just visiting. They're like, oh yeah, we're not just friends yet. Got to talk with you about what it is that we can do for you. And so just in my experience, expressing how, literally I'm saying that word now, expressing, expressing the value that our other clients who may or may not be expressors have received from the services that we offer is usually a really solid way to introduce that part of the conversation to the expressor, because they get lost in the details too, like too much information. It's like overstimulation, overload, but they will still remember how you made them feel in the conversation and that there was a warmth and, maybe for lack of a better term, an intimacy present that you expressed and shared with this person that they will come back to whenever they think about, okay, I've got these options in front of me. I really appreciated how this person made me feel. And maybe that would be the bottom line in making that sale to someone who's an expressor.
Right. Yeah. This is about conversations, I think, with friends and family. And as we work with clients, it's not just about making the sale, but in our business, very much, we continue on with a very people-oriented relationship. And the expressors within our client base, like if you just went and got right down to business, without really connecting with them at the start of the meeting, I think they would be offended by it and would be turned off and very well might not want to do business with you any longer, because it isn't. This is really worth noting. Other clients, it's the exact opposite. If you got personal with them, they'd be like, what the heck are you doing? Like, we're here for business. But with expressors, just getting into business is like we're rushing things along. They would be turned off by it. And it's just so amazing in my mind how dramatic of a difference you can have from people to person, where one wants you to get into business right away, and maybe we'll save the personal stuff for after the call or at the end of the meeting, whereas the other wants the personal first, and we get around to it, maybe we'll actually talk about why we're here today. So, but don't, like, why are you so stuffy on this business front? Like, aren't you a human being? Don't you want to just get to know me or connect? And you need to adjust because, if you obviously if you have a single-minded approach, or you try to apply the same thing to every person, well, I mean, almost by default, these distinctive 4 personality types, and you only do really well with 1 out of the 4, well, you've just reduced your market down to 25% of what it otherwise could be. I mean, that's a huge, huge reduction. Now, maybe as part of your avatar, you could be like, well, I really don't want to work with all the other 3 personality types, and you can incorporate this. And again, you don't have to work with everybody in the world. So maybe, do you need to have all the personality types in your client base? Nope, you probably don't. But it's important for us to appreciate these differences because it matters. It matters. People will respond to you differently depending on how you approach them.
It's interesting that you bring up the oppositeness, just made up that word, of the difference between expressors and commanders, for example. So an expressor, like if you don't begin the conversation with, even if you want to just call it small talk, but a chatty check-in, then things might not go as well, or the feeling that they experience when working with you might be a little bit slighted. Where that's completely opposite for a commander, for example. Like, they want to just dive right in. In some ways, a commander is very similar to an achiever, but think of a commander like in a general leading an army. Like, they've got...
1 second. So we're going to pivot into another third personality type, the commander. So this is a different personality type. So what is a commander, honey?
A commander is a general of an army. I just have to make this comment because in our experience, both Ben and I having gone through this course and learning more about these conversations that sell and the different tribal types, that we very much both have had, perhaps you could say maybe sour experiences in our past with commander type personality types. And so that is definitely not our preference. I mean, we can work with anybody, right? But whenever I have these intake calls with prospects and I determine that they might have this commander personality type, it's like, well, okay, we need to tread cautiously because it's just not necessarily how we best do business with our own personality types. And so a commander is very like, Similar to an achiever, they want those bullet points. Why wasn't this done yesterday? Kind of an attitude. And you can tell that you've hooked perhaps a commander if at the end of the conversation, then they do get into the small talk and want to talk about more of the personal things. Whereas with the expressor, it would be completely flipped. First talk about the personal, we're warming up, we're ramping up. Okay, now let's talk about the business stuff. But with commander, it's all business all the time, unless you get that accomplished, and then you can talk about the small talk.
Yeah, completely. Commanders, they're the ones who are in charge. That's how they see themselves. That's how they run their lives. They'll let you know, they're the executives, the executors. They'll let you know whether or not you passed mustard and you get to earn their business or not. It's definitely game on when you're working with a commander because there are expectations for whatever reason. I don't fully understand commander personality types. They're a little uptight, if you ask me, but their expectations are high and you need to bring your A game when you're working with them if you want that business. They tend to be very detailed in nature and they want you to be able to back up, if needed, whatever your claims are.
Yeah, reports, statistics. And they're the ones, like when you would begin a conversation, they're the ones beginning it. You're not the ones asking questions. They're the ones asking questions.
Right. Yeah. It's hard. Quite honestly, I find it to be hard to work with commanders. So they're all good people, right? We need the commanders in our lives, but I wouldn't describe them as friendly in my experience with them. It is all business and that's what they're here for.
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, the fourth personality or tribal type that we have in consideration here is the reflector, which neither of us have a strong suit in this. I am primarily an expressor. Like I check all the boxes on that. Ben checks all the boxes on achiever. I have maybe one or two boxes checked on a reflector. But a reflector is someone who, I'll just give this example. Ben and I are both fairly external processors. Me being an expressor, that's what I do. Ben being an achiever, he talks things out to process like step A to step B, etc. A reflector is someone that is really processing at the moment internally. And so it might take, like if you ask them a question, it's going to take them a bit of time to consider what has been presented. And they do not want to be rushed along. And so you ask them a question and it might be 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute and a half. What might feel like an awkward pause, like I got to keep this conversation moving, is really just them processing internally their response to whatever question or proposition you posed to them.
Yeah, reflectors are very interesting. And I suppose in my way, a polar opposite, because I will try to answer three things in one, all immediately upon being asked something. I won't even let you get the question out. And a reflector, a reflector literally will stop. If you haven't had this experience, maybe you are a reflector, so you can relate to this, but it's a 5-second delay. You ask them a question and it's just quiet. And you think maybe they haven't even, for me, it's like, did you hear my question? Like, what's going on? Did I say something that offended you? Like, why aren't you responding to me? And no, they just need time to think about it. They're very careful with their words. They want to hash things out quite a bit in their head. If they were to write an email, they'd look it over 20 or 30 times. Everything needs to be just right before they say anything. So really shy in a way and don't want to express or communicate anything until they're very confident that what they're communicating is the right response. So, they're similar to commanders in that reflectors tend to like a lot of details and they need time to reflect, to consider, to ponder over it. So if you're light on the details, that'll be a bother to them. They want the details, but they also want time. Like a reflector will not give you a yes or no answer at the end of the meeting. An achiever very well might do that. Maybe even a commander would do that. An expressor probably won't because you haven't even talked business.
This is true.
A reflector certainly will not. Like I guarantee you, a reflector will not give you a yes or no answer at the end of the meeting. There's no way they would. They need to take this back home with them, spend some time with it, and follow up with them in a week or two. And really, actually, what you need to do is give the reflector a deadline of like, we need an answer by this point in time, because they'll meet that deadline. But if you don't, they'll just continue to just reflect. Like they'll just like, oh, well, we'll think about it. Like taking action is not their strong suit. It's not that they won't take action. It's just they want to spend a lot of time thinking about what they're going to do first. It is like the complete polar opposite of me. I can't stand spending a lot of time thinking about things. Like I want to see things done. Let's move this along. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be moving. We'll make it work. And I think reflectors are like, why make something move unless it's going to be perfect in action? I don't know. What do you think, Deb? What's your experience of a reflector?
I think reflectors want to be very calculated in their response, and that takes them time to make all the considerations. Something that's very important when considering these 4 tribal types that Nancy is strong in is one of the questions I like to ask towards the end. Like, what does it take? What are the parameters for you in making a decision like this? And you might not even have to ask that question with an achiever because they're like, all right, ready. Like, send me the paperwork right now. Let's get this going. But with a reflector, they might say, oh, I'm going to need at least a week or 2, so that you can be respectful of the time that they need for internal processing, but then know when to follow up and then bring up the points that you discussed on the call whenever you were meeting to reemphasize how it is that you can fill the need that they're looking for.
Well, and the other thing too with the reflector that's interesting that we haven't really discussed is that they often will not make a decision on their own. They want to consult and refer and discuss and really loop other people into the decision. And so if you almost as part of your sale process have to be able to help them identify who would be a good confidant for them to consider as they work through this, because not only are they going to reflect on this, like I don't think reflectors make decisions based off of their own considerations. They want to consult other people, which again is part of their process. Is why it takes longer to close that sale. Now, the good news is reflectors tend to be really loyal customers. It takes a little bit to bring them in, but once they have made a decision that you're the one that they're going to work with for whatever it is that you're doing, they don't really change after that. They're pretty consistent in saying, yep, we took our time. We decided you were the person that we're going to work with for this product or service, and it's done. It's almost been done eternally, right? I mean,
we call them lifers. Like they will be clients of ours for life because it takes a lot of upfront investment on both parts for you to showcase what it is that you're providing for them and for them to consider that versus other options available to them. And if you're the winning number, like you're it for them for life. It would be very rare for a reflector to back out of an engagement like this, just considering the nature of their tribal type.
Yeah, you'd have to do something to really sever the relationship, I would think, before they instill some distrust in them before they would want to change once the decision has been made. So in the whole, I mean, why have we spent the time on this again? It's because folks vary. Hopefully you've gotten a good sense of that variety just through the different tribal types that we've expressed to you. And part of being in business is closing sales and generating revenue with people. And people aren't the same. They have distinctive characteristics to them. We can broadly categorize them in these categories like we have. And I think it's worth recognizing how you need to make adjustments depending on the type of person that you have, whether it's a commander, an achiever, an expressor, or a reflector. So again, a commander, that's the person who's in charge. They expect to be in charge and take the lead and want you to take a back seat, or you're there just to chime in when they want you to. Achievers are like, how many things can we get done? And can you help me get all of them done too? And if you can, you get a gold star, and let's try to get one more thing done because why not? And
and can we get it done in less amount of time than you suggested?
Oh gosh, that would be amazing.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Yep. Expressors are like, hey, let's just be friends. You want to go get a beer and connect and just talk about life and children and the future and everything. And maybe we'll eventually get around to business, but what's even business for? So
if you're an expressor, give me a call. We can be friends.
That's right. And reflectors, let's give them a quiet space so they can give some time to give this consideration and better help them figure out who they need to consult to make the decision, and then give them a deadline for when they need to make a decision, because they probably won't make the decision unless you start to give them some firmness, because they like to reflect. Those are very different, distinctive tribal types. And I think as we consider your avatar, we consider marketing, we consider sales, this is all very important. But I think as a point that I'd like to just really bring home as a high point between both of these episodes is a mistake business owners can make. Again, we're creating this business as a pursuit of financial independence, as a way to really have long-lasting results, to help you achieve your dreams, but put your life into a balance, but also really one of the best ways to carry an income for yourself into retirement, right? Here's us, the financial planning coming out. And I really believe and think about that in all of this. The question is, what type of business are you creating? But the mistake, and this is the point I want to bring, the mistake that we can make as business owners is we want our business to be a reflection of us. We want to make our contribution into the world, and we want to kind of have our little space, our little scratch out a living for ourselves and shine, and have the business ultimately be a reflection of us. And one of the things I've learned after being in business for really a decade is that's a terrible mistake. That's a terrible idea, because at the end of the day, as much as you might want this business to be about you, it needs to be about your clients. It needs to be about your customers. It needs to be about the people who are, at the end of the day, in order for this business to work, are going to have to be willing to let go of the money they have, usually the very hard-earned money that they have, and say, I want to use your services. I've decided on you. And so in order for that to work, it has to be about them. It has to be about your client. And so what makes sense for them is really what I want to communicate to you as the critical point, both in your avatar and in your sales, as you're working with them. What's in it for them? That's what's going to make the business work, not what's in it for you or how can I make this a reflection about you? Because it can be great. You get a chance to expressing yourself, but no one else wants to do business. No one else is really picking up what you're putting down. And you're not going to be in business for very long if that's the case. It has to be about your clients.
So what's in it for them? These are the points that I keep at the front of mind when I'm beginning a conversation with a prospect. So be aware of all 4 tribal types, and then what's in it for them in light of that. So what's in it for them if they do business with us as becoming a financial planning client? What's in it for them? So I can talk all day long about how great Ben is and with all of his designations and how he provides value in this way or that way. But what it comes down to is what's in it for them. Like, how is that going to translate in their situation, which would make them want to come and become clients of ours? And so we've actually shifted a bit in the language that we have on our own website. First, initially, we were showcasing like all the things that we're doing. But instead, when you consider what's in it for them, we shift our branding and the language we have on our website. Instead of what is it about us that makes us amazing, we focus on what's in it for them. And we tailor the phrasing and the details as such. Like, you're stressed out because you've got student loan debt. What's in it for you? We provide peace of mind when it comes to your student loans, paying that off, whatever tax strategy there might be necessary with that. We change our focus to be on them and their situation instead about what it is necessarily that we can do because of our designations. Ultimately, what this comes down to with considering what's in it for them is really just beginning a relationship. And how do you begin a relationship? Not by telling the other person of how great you are and how it would be a privilege for them to work with you. No, you begin a relationship by starting a conversation. You get to know the other person. You find out what they like, what they don't like, what they're looking for, what they're decidedly not looking for. And you use that to position your product or offering and how you can get them from where they are to where they want to be. And that's what it comes down to. What's in it for them? You consider their tribal type, take them from where they are to where they want to be, and how you can be that bridge over that gap. And that's what we try to do here when we consider buyer psychology.
There you go. I mean, I think that sums it up pretty well, honey. Thanks so much for your participation here today. Guys, it's great having you. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I love your participation. Please, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and promote us. Give us some likes. Isn't that what you do? Is that what we need to do, is have folks give us some likes to help get our name out there? So we would be honored by any attention or promotion that you could do on our behalf. We really love what we're doing here and believe in it, and just hoping to get others looped in and communicate that message to them as well. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to us today, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. I hope you've had as much fun as we did. If you'd like to learn more about any of the subjects we spoke about, please visit our website for show notes, links, and more. Hit like, subscribe, or whatever button you've got in front of you to show some love. Remember, the information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Remember what Teddy Roosevelt said about the person who strives greatly. If he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Until next time, keep striving.
Thanks again, and be well.